Miles County had a silence that didn't feel peaceful, it felt suffocating, like the town itself was holding its breath, waiting for something horrible to crawl out of the dark. It had been 3 years since the Miles County massacre. The survivors, what little were left of them, had either vanished into obscurity or been institutionalized, most never speaking again. The town had done everything to forget. The news stations stopped covering it. The buildings were repainted. The abandoned carnival grounds were fenced off and declared condemned. But evil doesn't care about fences. It was October again. Halloween was approaching. And with it came something else. The wind blew colder than usual as a black van rolled quietly into town under cover of dusk. The headlights flickered erratically. Behind the wheel, no one sat. Not visibly. Inside, nestled between party props and rusted tools, sat the one thing the town had tried to bury in myth, a black trash bag. And in it, the clown suit. Meanwhile, high school senior Emma Holloway adjusted the pumpkin decorations outside her family's diner. She glanced down the street. Something about the air felt wrong. Like something was watching her. Her little brother, Max, came running up behind her. "Emma," he whispered, "someone's in the alley behind the diner." She froze. "What do you mean someone?" "I don't know." He was tall. Pale face. Just staring. Emma grabbed a broom and cautiously approached the alley. The sun was setting fast, shadows stretching like grasping fingers across the cracked concrete. She peeked around the corner. Empty. But the dumpster lid was slightly ajar. "Hello?" she called out. Silence. Suddenly, the diner's sign lights flickered and popped. A low hum buzzed through the air, making the fillings in her teeth vibrate. Then came a giggle. Childlike. Mocking. She turned fast. Nothing. "Max, stay inside," she ordered, her heart pounding. She didn't see the figure step out of the sewer grate just a block away. Pale. Grinning. Holding a honking horn in one hand and a rusty hacksaw in the other. Art the Clown was back. That night, the power in Miles County went out. Streetlights died. Phones wouldn't dial out. In the local morgue, a security camera picked up static before shorting out completely. When the coroner arrived the next morning, he found the bodies of 2 officers nailed to the ceiling in a grotesque marionette display. Their organs were arranged like streamers. In the corner of the autopsy room, written in blood on the wall, were 3 chilling words. "Miss me yet?" Emma didn't sleep that night. She had dreams of blood dripping from red balloons, of laughter echoing in endless tunnels, and a pale face with eyes that never blinked. Miles County thought the nightmare was over. It had only just begun. The morning after the blackout was drenched in dread. A heavy fog clung to the town like a shroud. The screams from the morgue had drawn a crowd by sunrise, but most left without a word, too disturbed to speak of what they saw. Miles County was breaking its silence, and fear was slipping through the cracks. Emma sat at the kitchen table, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling as she sipped her 3rd cup of coffee. The news played faintly on the TV. Police are investigating a grisly scene discovered at the county morgue. Authorities have not released details, but sources report a possible connection to the 2019 Miles County massacre. Her mother switched off the TV. "That clown's dead. They killed him. You remember what they said, he was shot in the face and burned." Emma stared blankly at her. "Then why does it feel like he's watching us again?" That evening, Emma walked home from school with Max. The streets felt unfamiliar, like the town had shifted just slightly, wrong in ways she couldn't explain. An empty stroller sat in the middle of the sidewalk. A crow watched them from a lamp post, its head tilted unnaturally far. As they passed the alley beside the old theater, Max tugged on her sleeve. "There," he whispered. "By the dumpster." She turned, and froze. A figure stood perfectly still in the shadows. White face. Blood-red smile. Tattered clown suit. A jagged crack ran down one side of his face like porcelain shattered. Art the clown. He didn't move. He just smiled. Emma backed away slowly, heart hammering, pulling Max behind her. But when she blinked, he was gone. That night, Miles County Carnival grounds lit up for the first time in years. No one knew who turned the power on. The place had been shut down and condemned. Yet the Ferris wheel spun slowly in the dark, music from a warped calliope echoed faintly, and the lights of the funhouse blinked red. Emma got the text at 11:46 p.m. Unknown number, come see what's behind the mirrors, Emma. She dropped the phone. It buzzed again. Unknown number, bring your little brother. He's funny. At the same moment across town, a teenager named Ronnie was live-streaming a TikTok challenge with two friends at the carnival gate. Alright guys, we're going in. Gonna see if the freak shows back. Laughter. Daring. Cocky bravado. They never came out. The phone was found on the bumper car floor the next morning, cracked and blood-smeared. The last frame on the live stream was a blurred, laughing face, pale and streaked with red, lunging straight into the camera with a gleaming blade in hand. A new legend had begun to crawl out of the fog. Art the clown wasn't just back. He was evolving. 3 bodies were found inside the abandoned carnival grounds. Or rather, what was left of them. Sheriff Mallory stared in disbelief at the scene beneath the flickering lights of the bumper car arena. One of the teens, Ronnie, had been twisted into a macabre carousel pole, his spine snapped and threaded through the metal rod like meat on a skewer. His skin had been painted like a clown's costume. Red and white. With real blood. Another girl was strapped to a bumper car seat, face peeled off and nailed to the steering wheel like a party mask. The third, they hadn't even found her head. The cops sealed off the grounds, but the carnival lights never stopped flashing. The power to the area had long been disconnected, no one could explain how anything was even running. That same morning, Emma awoke to a message smeared across her bedroom window. Red makes me smile. It wasn't paint. She screamed, grabbing Max and running downstairs, where their mother stood frozen, staring at the TV. The local news was broadcasting grainy, hacked surveillance footage from inside the carnival. A figure danced across the screen, Art the Clown, twirling through blood-soaked funhouse corridors. He pranced over corpses, did mock curtsies, and stared directly into the camera. Grinning. Max's voice trembled. He's coming for us. Emma grabbed her phone, heart racing, and scrolled through her texts. A new number had messaged her again. Unknown number, want to play dress up, Emma? I found something nice in your closet. Her stomach dropped. She ran to her room, her closet door was wide open. Inside, her favorite red dress had been slashed down the middle and stuffed with raw meat. On the floor, smeared in blood, was a single clown shoe, child-sized. That night, she went to the police. They didn't believe her. The sheriff dismissed her claims as trauma-induced hallucination. The clown's dead, Miss Holloway. You need rest. Not attention. But as Emma left the station, she passed by the evidence room, and through the small glass window, she saw a red balloon slowly rise from the floor. The camera above the door blinked out. And then the screaming started. Art was inside. By the time the officers stormed the room, it was too late. The sheriff was hanging from the ceiling fan, spinning like a carnival ride, intestines stretched out like streamers. His badge was nailed to his forehead. A laughing clown face, drawn in human fat, stretched across the mirror. Outside, the wind howled through the trees as Emma and Max ran through the night toward the only person left who might believe them, Sienna Shaw, survivor of the last massacre. But Art wasn't far behind. And he was done playing games. The carnival loomed under the blood-red moon like a rotting corpse resurrected from the earth. Its gates, once sealed by rusted chains, were wide open now, inviting, pulsing with a strange life of their own. The air reeked of burnt sugar, mold, and something fouler, something metallic. Emma and Max stood just outside the perimeter, clutching each other, their breaths visible in the unnatural cold. Behind them, Sienna Shaw, blood-stained and haunted, stared at the grounds with hollow eyes. "He's building something," she whispered. "This isn't just killing. He's making art." Inside, Art the Clown twirled through the corridors of the old funhouse, dragging behind him a sack that squelched wetly with every bounce. Laughter echoed through the halls, his and others. A child's giggle. A woman's scream distorted into a cackle. None were alive. The walls of the funhouse had changed. Mirrors were shattered and reassembled into jagged mazes. Blood ran between the cracks like veins. The floor was soft in places, stitched together from real skin. Carnival music played backward, warping into inhuman frequencies that scraped the edge of sanity. Emma, Sienna, and Max entered the mouth of the funhouse, a grotesque clown face made of stretched leather, its teeth sharp bones. The moment they stepped in, the entrance sealed behind them. The maze was alive. A distorted voice crackled through unseen speakers. "Welcome to the Carnival of Dread. Don't lose your head, unless you want to." Lights blinked in rapid succession, revealing flashes of horror with each pulse. A man sewn into a wall, still twitching. A woman crawling on the ceiling, her mouth stitched into a scream. A carousel of corpses, spinning endlessly to a lullaby. Max screamed and darted forward. Emma chased him, but the hallway stretched longer and longer until she was alone. Behind her, the mirrors shifted, showing dozens of Art's reflections, but only one moved when she didn't. Suddenly, he burst through the glass like a jack-in-the-box from hell. Emma screamed as Art lunged, brandishing a bone saw carved into the shape of a balloon animal. Sienna tackled him from the side, slashing at his face with a broken shard of mirror. Blood sprayed, but Art just laughed silently, his teeth black with decay. He vanished into smoke. They found Max tied to a spinning wheel. Surrounding him, clowns made of flesh and bone danced a slow, ritualistic waltz. In the center stood Art, wearing someone else's face like a party mask. "Max!" Emma screamed. Art pressed a button. The wheel began to spin faster, blades positioned at random intervals around the circle. Sienna ran forward and tackled Art off the platform. They tumbled into the pit below. The lights exploded in a burst of red. Then, silence. Emma freed Max, sobbing as the music wound down. But Art wasn't gone. In fact, they'd just walked into the core of his masterpiece. The walls pulsed. The funhouse was breathing. The storm rolled in without warning, sheets of rain pounding the earth as if the sky itself was trying to wash the evil away. But nothing could cleanse what lingered beneath Miles County. Beneath the carnival, through a trapdoor hidden behind a rotted puppet theater, Emma and Max descended into the underbelly of hell. The sewers. The air was thick with decay, clotted with the stench of blood, rot, and something far older. Pipes groaned. Walls pulsed with a heartbeat not their own. Shapes shifted in the shadows, just beyond vision, whispering nonsense in warped voices. Sienna hadn't moved since the fall. She lay slumped near the bottom of the pit, unconscious but breathing. Emma carried her, dragging her limp body while Max clutched her hand tightly, eyes wide, trying not to cry. A tunnel stretched before them, dimly lit by strings of flickering bulbs, strung up like Christmas lights, each encased in a shrunken head. Beneath their feet, the water ran red. Painted on the walls were messages. "Smile wider. Art is forever. The jokes get fleshier." Emma stopped suddenly. From the darkness ahead, came a voice. It was her father's voice. "He died 2 years ago." "Emma," it whispered, low and broken. "Help me, sweetie. I'm cold." Her breath caught. "Dad?" She stepped forward, trembling. Then Max yanked her back, pointing toward the wall. There, emerging slowly, was Art the clown. Not walking. Not crawling. Slithering. His limbs twisted like rubber, face deformed in a grotesque smile that split his cheeks. He wore a necklace of eyeballs. Blood wept from every seam in his costume. And in his hand, an iron marionette control bar, dangling 3 corpses with strings drilled through their limbs. Each corpse wore a mask of someone Emma knew. He began to perform, a silent puppet show of her family being butchered, jerking the corpses into exaggerated death throes while dancing behind them. Max screamed. Art snapped his head toward him, and lunged. Sienna stirred. In one blur of motion, she drove a rusted metal spike into Art's leg. He shrieked, no sound, but full of rage, and vanished again into a gurgle of sewer water. They ran. Tunnel after tunnel. Laughter echoed all around them. And then, at the center of the underground labyrinth, they found the shrine. A towering effigy made of bone, skin, and clown props. Human torsos fused into a throne. Faces stretched like balloons and stapled to the walls. Dead eyes watched from every direction. In the middle of it all, Art stood waiting. Behind him, an altar. And strapped to it, Victoria Hayes. The lone survivor of the original massacre. Her body was mutilated beyond recognition, but she was alive. Barely. She opened her mouth and whispered one word. Run. Then the lights cut out. And something far worse than Art emerged from the pit behind him. A second clown. Silent. Smiling. Deformed. And growing. The darkness swallowed them whole. Emma, Max, and Sienna stood frozen at the edge of the shrine, hearts pounding in their chests as the figure before them twisted and contorted, growing larger with every breath. The second clown, his face a chaotic mosaic of stitched skin and cracked porcelain, loomed over them, his smile wider than any human could ever bear. His eyes were not eyes, they were hollow pits, voids that seemed to pull in everything around them. A deep, oppressive silence filled the chamber, so thick it pressed against their eardrums, suffocating them. Who are you?" Emma gasped, her voice trembling. The figure's mouth opened unnaturally wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth, each one more grotesque than the last. "I am your nightmare," the clown whispered, his voice deep and reverberating, like 1,000 whispers joined into one. His body shifted again, limbs stretching and twisting, skin cracking with every movement. He wasn't like Art, he wasn't bound by any human form. He was something older, something darker. Something that belonged to a place beyond reality. Sienna stumbled backward, her breath coming in short gasps. "No, this can't be happening. He's not real." "Oh, but I am," the clown purred. "And I'm your eternal jester. Your eternal torment." Art, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. His painted face was warped in a twisted grin, like he reveled in the horrors unfolding. He reached for the nearest corpse, the remains of a man whose limbs were stretched unnaturally long, and used it as a puppet to dance, jerking it in grotesque movements. Emma could barely tear her eyes away, but when she did, she saw it, the altar. Victoria Hayes, barely alive, her skin a mottled canvas of blood and stitched together flesh, writhed against the restraints. Her body was a patchwork of agony, her eyes wide with terror and pleading. "Emma," she whispered, her voice rasping. "You have to stop him. He's not just a clown. He's..." The words died in her throat as the second clown, Hell's Clown Prince, moved toward her, his hands outstretched, his fingers too long, too sharp. The air around him thickened, the walls of the chamber trembling under the pressure of his presence. "No," Emma whispered, her legs shaking as she stepped forward, but a sudden surge of horror made her freeze. What is he? What does he want? Hell's Clown Prince chuckled darkly, his voice echoing in the darkness. I want everything. Your fear. Your pain. Your souls. Art leaped forward, slashing the air with a blade that gleamed in the dim light. Emma barely had time to react before the blade came down. But just as it was about to strike, Sienna, who had been watching in horrified silence, lunged forward with the rusted spike she had used to injure Art earlier. She plunged it into the Clown Prince's chest. A scream, not human, but something older, more primal, ripped through the air. The figure staggered back, his form flickering as though reality itself was struggling to hold him together. Do not touch me, he roared. The walls of the chamber began to crack, the ceiling groaning as though it were about to collapse. Max screamed, grabbing Emma's hand. We need to leave. Now. The ground beneath them began to tremble, and the shadows thickened. The Shrine of Bones started to shift, its twisted faces warping into grotesque contortions. And then, in a sudden burst of black smoke, the Clown Prince vanished. The air was heavy with the stench of decay. The walls began to close in on them. They didn't wait. The ground shook beneath their feet, the walls cracking like old bones. Dust and ash rained down from the ceiling as the entire underground shrine began to collapse. Emma, Max, and Sienna scrambled toward the tunnel that had led them here, but every direction they turned, the walls seemed to close in tighter, as if the very carnival itself were alive, feeding on their fear. Behind them, the distorted laughter of Art the Clown echoed, reverberating through the corridors, growing louder with each step. We're not going to make it, Sienna gasped, her voice frantic as she tried to pull Emma forward. We're trapped. Emma turned back, her eyes wide with terror. The tunnel had become a twisting labyrinth, impossible to navigate. There were no exits, no way out. Max's eyes were filled with dread. We can't keep running. He's everywhere. Suddenly, the sound of dragging metal scraped across the floor behind them. Emma froze, her heart hammering in her chest. She turned slowly, her breath catching in her throat. Art stood at the far end of the tunnel, his grin stretching impossibly wide. The dim light from the flickering bulbs illuminated the blood that smeared across his clown makeup, his clothes soaked in it. In his hand, he held a massive, rusted scythe, its blade stained with the remnants of countless victims. You think you can escape? Art's voice was a twisted, mocking whisper, though his lips never moved. It was as if the sound itself came from within her own mind. We don't have time for this, Sienna spat, pushing forward, but Art swung the scythe with inhuman speed, slicing through the air with a shrill scream of metal. Emma yanked Max back just in time, feeling the breeze from the blade rush past them. It's over, Sienna murmured, her eyes wide with terror. He's not going to stop until we're dead. The ground beneath their feet cracked open, and from the jagged split, black tendrils shot up, snaking toward them, pulling the air into a suffocating grip. The tunnel was no longer just a place, it was a living thing, alive with the souls of the damned, its walls pulsing like a heartbeat. The shadows around them stretched impossibly long, turning into monstrous figures, each one a twisted reflection of Art's madness. Emma's mind raced. There had to be a way out, a way to stop this madness. And then she remembered. Sienna's words, spoken earlier, echoed in her mind, he's not just a clown. He's a puppet master. The realization hit her like a jolt of electricity. Art wasn't just playing with them, he was controlling everything. The carnival, the horrors, the nightmares, it was all part of his design. Max. Sienna. Emma shouted, her voice sharp with determination. The strings. They're the key. Sienna turned, confusion written across her face, but Emma was already moving. She grabbed a shard of broken mirror from the floor, its sharp edge glinting in the dim light. We cut the strings, Emma said, her voice steady now, as the walls around them closed in. Max and Sienna nodded, understanding what had to be done. They ran toward the center of the tunnel, where Art stood waiting, his eyes burning with malice. But Emma didn't hesitate. With a swift motion, she slashed the air, cutting the first of the puppet strings that bound them to this nightmare. The world trembled. Art screeched in rage, his body contorting as the shadows began to disintegrate around him. The carnival itself started to fall apart, the walls collapsing into dust, the tendrils retracting back into the ground. But Art wasn't finished. He lunged forward, his arms outstretched, ready to tear them apart. And then, with one final slash, the last of the strings were cut. The entire carnival, every horror, every nightmare, every twisted creation, collapsed into nothingness. Art's form shattered like glass, his laughter echoing into the void, fading into silence. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, there was peace. Emma, Max, and Sienna stood in the ruins, gasping for air, their bodies bruised and broken but alive. The horror was over. Or so they thought. As they turned to leave the collapsing ruins of the carnival, a final, chilling voice whispered through the wreckage. "You can't escape me. I'm always here, always waiting, for the final laugh." And as they walked away, the echo of Art's laugh followed them into the darkness, forever. The end, for now.